Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lessons from the Screen. Today, I am going to talk about the first book on this podcast, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Oh, by the way, that's just the first name I've butchered. I'm going to butcher a lot of names. This is a pretty old book written in pre-Soviet Russia, and I'm not a Russian, and I'm just going to butcher a lot of names. I am sorry. Please excuse me. To start with, also in today's episode, if you're listening, this doesn't matter. But if you're watching, I welcome you to the cozy corner of my home. This is my favorite corner of the home. This is the you can see the window. This is west facing. It's the sun is currently setting right now. It's what 5:40 ish, and sunset happens at around 6:10, 6:05. So yeah, I like sitting here. Behind me is my little book rack thingy. I don't know. It was built by the previous owner, and that was his. This was his alcohol cabinet. Right now, I don't have any other place to put my books, so this is my book cabinet. I plan to get a bookshelf soon because this is already too small and overflowing. However, let's come to Crime and Punishment. But before I do that, I highly recommend this book. I would want everybody to read this book. A, because I feel that books are still some of the best value for money entertainment in terms of, hours of entertainment divided by the amount of money you have spent. That fraction is so high for the books compared to something like a movie, for example. A movie ticket would be what? Right now in Mumbai, around $200 is a good amount. You could find it cheaper on discounts for sure. You could also find something like Avengers going for $1,000, which is ludicrous. $200 is what a movie ticket would cost. The same as this book. Actually, I paid a little less than $200 for this book. And when you consider it took me a little over 2 months, more like 2.5 months to read this book, that's a lot of entertainment for the money. Now, definitely, I was not sitting all day and reading this book. I haven't put 6 hour days into it, but this is definitely still a lot of reading. This book is about 407, is precisely 471 pages, and it has a very dense print, much denser than your average self-help book or any other book. Yeah, this is just when my nose decides to be runny and irritated. Anyway, that's a lot of pages, that's a lot of word, that's a lot of entertainment for your money. So I feel you should read a book, any book, but specifically this book, because it is such a brilliant value for money. You want to learn something and entertain yourself, like entertain yourself in a way that it is not doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, then hey, great value for money. Two, wow, this book goes so deep, man. For a book that was written about 200 odd years ago, it is still so relevant, and it goes so deep on human character and the dark side of the human mind. But not just because there's a murder. Oh, by the way, spoilers if you haven't read, just like there's a murder in this book, and it's not just dark because it's murder. When I was reading, it made me reflect on even the negative thoughts that even sometimes I have, right? Sometimes you just feel like, God, just let's be done with it. In fact, the reason why the guy commits murder in this book is because he feels like this person is anyways an asshole, is anyways a terrible person, and he tries to logically justify it to himself that this person is terrible anyways. I am going to become a lawyer, and if I kill this person, take their money and become a great lawyer, and I can help a lot of people, I can do so much good for the world, which is something I've heard from my cousin, my younger cousin. I've heard from a lot of people, right, that why should I do the right thing, or why should I be holding myself to any kind of moral standard when everybody out there is an asshole, right? The world is fucked. The world is fucked already. So me doing good or not doing good, how is that gonna matter? I think this book gives you a nice answer on why that is going to matter, because the one who has a conscience suffers in guilt, and that itself is his punishment. And I believe that you should do the right thing. I personally believe, even before reading this book, that you should do the right thing, not because nobody, regardless of, like nobody else is doing it or what, right? And a lot of people say that, nobody's doing the right thing. And I'm like, that is exactly why you should do the right thing, because if you don't do it, then nobody will, right? You just said that nobody is doing the right thing. Everybody is an asshole. So at least you do the right thing. At least you, create this example of what is the moral good. Hello, everybody. Meet Hammond. He's a good boy. He's a very good boy. And he's a little scared of the tripod. He's a little scared of the tripod. He's Hammond. He's a good boy. He's a little scared of the tripod. I think he's going to be here with us. Are you going to be here with us, sir? Apparently not. Oh, you're going to be. He's just outside the frame. He's right here. I've got some notes for the book, as you may expect. So this year, my New Year resolution, one of the things in my New Year resolution is to read 20 books this year. And Crime and Punishment has been the first one. And in this diary, I'm maintaining a note, maintaining a list of the books that I've read. The second one I've started is Little Woman by Louisa May Alcott. Lucia? I don't know. You get the point. It's actually a series of 4 books, and I've got the entire collection of 4 books. So I'm pretty psyched about it. I'm pretty psyched about all the reading I'm going to do in 2026. Anyway. So one thing again that I would like to remind people is that every form of art, I feel, is a product of its times, and this book is no exception. Again, as I said, it's a 200 odd year old book. It was written in pre-Soviet Russia during the you can say the final few years of the Tsar rule. So if you want, you can look up some history on the October Revolution that happened, the last Tsar of Russia and his entire story and his life, and how honestly he was handed an already crumbling, already failing empire. I think reading a bit about that history gives you good context for St. Petersburg in this book, because in this book, St. Petersburg is not just a setting, right? It's not just the background on which the play happens, but it feels lived in. You feel that summer stifling heat that the author is talking about, right? The author mentions. You feel that stuffiness of Raskolnikov, our protagonist, Raskolnikov. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. Raskolnikov's room is this tiny, like a matchbox kind of a room. It is often said in the book, like throughout you hear this. You hear him say this, you hear other people refer to it, that his room is like a matchbox, it's like a coffin. And it is so well, it is so well explained to you, and it keeps coming back. Here and there, as I said, sometimes he refers to it, sometimes people visiting him refer to it. So by the end of the book, you have this lived in feeling that, yeah, he lives in a fucking coffin, he lives in this tiny matchbox. Anyway, this book is a product of its time, just like every other form of art is. Keep that in mind, because there is definitely stuff which makes me go, ooh, no, 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 no. And then I realize, oh yeah, this was like 200 odd years ago. I might not agree with it, but that's how the world was 200 odd years ago. 200 odd years ago, India was a colony. So yeah, I would have not been able to make this podcast regardless, because I don't know, man, because we were a colony. So it would probably be growing like tobacco or indigo or something. Yeah, the book is very interesting to read. It's a very interesting change of pace. Actually, the first 30 odd pages of the book are just one long conversation. Our protagonist, Raskolnikov, again, he just walks into a tavern, and he's just having this long ass conversation with a drunkard, and this drunkard is exactly what you expect a drunkard to be. He's just explaining him shit that he just never asked for, and it's a 30-page long. Yeah, the first 30 pages is one conversation. In fact, the book is really boring and slow for the first 60 to 68 pages. Um I found it really boring. Honestly, I went to Bangalore in mid of November. I got this book in the I want to say end of October, if I'm not wrong. So, yeah, about a month or 20 days, I was still there at these 60, 68 pages. On my flight back, I crossed that point, and after those 60, 68 pages, the book really picks up. You know, it becomes very fast. And and here's the fun thing about it then. From mid November till what, the first Monday of January. So that was what, yeah, like a month and a half is how. So it took me about 20 days to a month to read the first 60, 70 pages, and then the next 400 odd pages took me a month and a half. So you can clearly see the divide in terms of how interesting the book is, or how fast paced or slow paced it is. Other thing is that in these later 400 odd pages, the book becomes both pretty tiring to read. Like you find yourself mentally fatigued, but at the same time, it's very difficult to put this book down. There were days when I would finish reading 20 odd pages. I would keep the book down because I felt like mentally fatigued. I felt like I wanted to get up, get a glass of water, wash my face, just take a breathe, take a breather. But then immediately, as soon as I had poured myself the glass of water, I would get back to reading, because the book is just unpeelable from your hands after a certain point. Um, I recognize this is a little awkward, at least for me, because usually after saying a point, I wait for somebody else to agree or disagree or tell me how they feel about it, but I don't have anybody else. Well, we have Hammond and Daenerys, who are just slightly out of the frame, but yeah, I don't think they speak much English. Um, if anybody of you, if any one of you is interested in reading books, loves reading books, and wants to do a little podcast with me, sure. This is all unscripted, open to conversation and interpretation, and coffee and fun. Though we are all out of coffee right now, but hey, there are like snuggles with cats. Man, I've got points, man. I've got a lot of points. So one of the great things that I took away from this book is definitely that uh, um, the man who has a conscience suffers while acknowledging his sins, and that is his greatest punishment, which is a direct quote from the book, if I'm not wrong. But the other thing that took away is that no matter how bad your situation is, or how helpless you find yourself, the choice is always yours to make between the good and the evil. For example, Sonia. Now, so as I mentioned earlier, the drunkard who has a 30-page long conversation with Raskolnikov, one of his daughters is Sonia, right? This guy is an alcoholic. He has thrown away his life and pretty much his family's life and future, essentially for alcohol. And Sonia has decided to resort to prostitution and sex work in order to feed herself, feed her stepmother, feed her siblings. Um, and Raskolnikov initially has a very looking down upon sort of a opinion of her, so to speak. Like, he really looks down upon her. He even tells her that, what is your greatest tragedy is that you have sold yourself for nothing. Right? He says that despite all of this, the money that she used to send to her stepmother, anyways, her dad used to steal it and go buy alcohol, right? But this shows the difference in choices between these two people. Raskolnikov is also poverty stricken, so is Sonia. They both don't have great prospects in life, so to speak. They both are in a pickle, but Raskolnikov decides to go kill a pawnbroker, which he justifies in his head and whatever. And Sonia decides to, instead of harm anybody, she chooses to, so to speak, harm herself, right? In the book itself, it is mentioned that prostitution is one of the worst works, or it is the worst work that anyone can do. No shit. But she does that to provide for her family, her siblings, her stepmother, while ensuring that she is not harming or hurting anybody else. On the other hand, Raskolnikov sort of takes this a little more selfish, so to speak, way out, where he decides to kill somebody. So he's willing to harm somebody else, but not himself. And to me, this shows, or in this book rather, it shows that, like, no matter what your situation is, like, they both were in a really bad situation, but one chose to still do good to others, to good to people around her, while this guy chose to be selfish, or he chose to, do good to himself at the cost of somebody else's life. And if you read this book, in the book he has, our protagonist Raskolnikov has his whole theory on why he can do this, right? He has his whole sort of his own propaganda that he buys into, that he is allowed to kill someone, he is allowed to do harm to others because he is better than them, right? He is not a mere mortal, right? He is a greater human being. He compares himself to Napoleon. Now I'm going to be reading a lot from the book itself because I really did put my mind down and read and wrote it one night, and there's a lot of stuff that I can't just wing and I would like to get it right. This book also tells us a lot about the dangers of philosophy. For example, Friedrich Nietzsche hated philosophy. That's strange, a great philosopher hated philosophy. He said, the moment you give up to dwell in the actual concrete world, to dwell in the abstract, you are denying yourself the gift that life has given you. According to him, when philosophers and thinkers try to see things as pure good or evil, when they try to live life from this third person fly on the wall perspective, they lose the ability to live and experience the world and live in all of its complexities, all of its minute grayness, so to speak. In this book, Dostoevsky has approached this idea from a very different side. Here he shows how having this purely abstract thought can isolate a man from the real world. Also, Dostoevsky is writing this book at a time when things are changing very fast, both in Russia, but also in the whole of Europe at this point. There are a lot of thoughts, a lot of schools of thoughts that are running through Russia, and Dostoevsky is a man who doesn't find himself agreeing with any of them fully, but finds parts and parcels of many of them to be valid. And in this book, you see him try to explain, or rather walk a tight rope with rationalism, which is a school of thought that says that everything a person wants or does can be explained rationally. But in this book, our protagonist, when he is in Siberia, writes admitting that he didn't kill the pawnbroker out of poverty. In fact, in the book, his friend Razumihin gives him a perfectly good way to get out of poverty by doing translation work. But he refuses. Similarly, I have faced this personally, and I'm sure a lot of you who are freelancers or business owners must have faced this at some point, that we all have clients that we hate to work with or we refuse to work. Maybe at some point we worked with them, we hated working with them, and then we've just decided that we refuse working with them from here on out. Despite the money being good, despite it making practical sense, because it's not about the logical way to make money, but rather to fill the void within. Similarly, our protagonist, Raskolnikov, was obsessed with becoming Napoleon. And in all this abstract thinking, one often forgets to respect what we have, the ordinary. in his want to become Napoleon, he doesn't notice his friend Razumihin, who, by all measures, at least according to me, is a brilliant friend. This guy takes care of his mother and sister when they show up in the town. This guy takes care of him when he's sick. Uh, he is willing to marry his sister, which is a little, I was like, naughty boy. You just wanted to bang my sister, didn't you? But like, it's not like he just wants to bang his sister. He is genuinely willing to marry her. And yes, that might be the reason why he was so nice to his mother and sister, but that doesn't change the fact that he was nice to them. Again, Dostoevsky is not somebody denying thinking or even abstract thinking, right? A lot of the great things that we have, a podcast, a video camera, a mic, our houses, electricity, a lot of this was invented, was created because of this abstract thinking. But he says that we need to learn to walk the rope. For our times, the example would be social media and debt and their correlation. How social media is not a bad thing, right? I think it's a wonderful thing. There have been hurricanes and floods in which people have been, their phone services were down, or the waves were jammed, and there was water in their houses, but these people could reach emergency help on Twitter, right? Or it has connected us, it has connected a lot of the people across the globe. I'm sure good things have come from social media, but that does not mean that Instagram is not, or TikTok is not creating brain rot. That does not mean that every time I open LinkedIn, I feel like throwing up, because on all these platforms, people are showing off. These platforms promote you showing off. These platforms promote you putting pictures of you getting married, of you taking a Europe trip, of you buying a Mercedes or a BMW, without acknowledging how much debt you are in, probably because you bought a BMW or a Mercedes though you couldn't afford it, because you went to a Europe trip on your credit card, and now you are 4 lakhs, 3 lakhs, how many ever lakhs in debt on a credit card, which is going to charge you at 30, 35%, 40% interest per annum. And what I mean here when I say social media and debt, that is what I mean. Social media has created a culture of showing off. Again, I'm not saying that all social media is bad, right? Social media is one of the, I won't say one of the greatest, but definitely one of the of very helpful things that humans have created. But at the same time, this culture of showing off, this culture of me having the coolest thing. I have seen so many people around me who have an iPhone, and I know so many of them don't even make 50,000 a month, and that is terrible. That is extremely terrible. But then I also know, I can give you a billion examples. Let's not go there. But the point is that this show of culture is creating a generation that is so much in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, having just, I don't even know where to get started. You just get the point. We are not going to go too deep in this, because this topic genuinely makes me feel sad. Dostoevsky's critic of nihilism. This is perhaps no. In this book, Dostoevsky has done also a pretty remarkable job of critiquing nihilism. There is probably no other character as fucking repulsive that I've ever come across. Not in this book, in fucking Game of Thrones, in fucking Breaking Bad, in that book and this book, and I don't know whichever other books I've read, and in fucking Mahabharata and Ramayana and in the Bible and in every single piece of literature that I have read, every single movie or TV show that I've watched, I have never come across a character that is as fucking repulsive as, excuse me, Vanovich Swedrig. Oh, fuck me, man. Vanovich Swedrigalov. I'm sorry. This man is actually extraordinary in Raskolnikov's definition. He is someone who he is extraordinary in the sense that in Raskolnikov's theory, right, his theory of greatness, Raskolnikov believes that there are ordinary men, most of us, you and me, who are not above the law. We cannot do things like kill somebody and get away with it because, we're not above the law. We are ordinary men. And then there are extraordinary men, right? There are brilliant people like Raskolnikov himself. He believes he is one of them. He feels Napoleon was one of them. And he gives this example that all these people, Napoleon is an example he gives, but all these people who have, changed the world and conquered shit, these all people did it on back of breaking the law and like killing people, right? And you cannot achieve that level of greatness unless and until you're willing to kill and then get away with it. And in that sense, Vanovich is an extraordinary person in Raskolnikov's perspective. He is someone who has poisoned his wife, abused his children, is planning to get married to a child half her age, less than half her age. He blackmails Donia. Fuck me, man. Why is all these names so difficult? He blackmails Donia, Raskolnikov's sister, into having sex with him. He does great acts of both good kindness as well as like repulsive bad things, both without any sense of joy or satisfaction. He has gone so far that he's practically bored at this point. He's not doing bad things or good things because he gets any joy or satisfaction. He's doing them because he's just bored. And that is the ultimate critique of nihilism. That, yeah, he agrees with nihilism to some degree. He's not saying that, you should be, he as in Dostoevsky, is not saying that you should be bothered by every little thing that happens in your life. But at the same time, you need to draw a line, you need to walk a rope where you're not so far gone that you're just bored. It is like this guy, Vanovich. He has a thirst for meaning, but there is no drop inside. In this book, I also found a very nuanced and detailed thought on suffering and the pain of becoming and how different characters undergo it. Sonia, for example, as we have talked, takes it up with pride. She becomes a prostitute, a sex worker, to feed her family, which is in the book said to be the worst profession. Raskolnikov, on the other hand, also suffers, but not so much externally, but more on his own account. When he murders the old lady, he finds himself isolated from the world, from those around him, and from those who love him. His guilt is his punishment. His nightmares are his punishment, which eventually push him to confess. And the resulting jail is just what comes afterwards, rather is just the last form of the punishment, but not the whole punishment. The myth of being superior, as I've already told you, that Raskolnikov, our protagonist, has this thesis, he has this belief that, there are some men who are superior to others. This is what leads Raskolnikov to murder the old woman, after which he begins to try to isolate himself. But if you read the book carefully, you'll notice that he's been doing it for long before he did the murder. Razumihin, in his early interactions in the book, mentions that it has been a long time since he has met Raskolnikov. Also that Razumihin thinks very highly of himself. sorry, also that Raskolnikov thinks very highly of himself. Um, these these beliefs of him being superior is what sort of draws this wedge between him and his good friend, who, as again, as I said earlier, by all my accounts, is a brilliant friend to have. This is another part to, there is another part to it. There is another part to it. He goes to Sonia's place and berates her. He tells her that she has sold herself for nothing and how her prostitution has done nothing to help her family. But then he also confesses his crime to her. He also confesses that he is the murderer of the pawnbroker. We as humans love to hear confirmations and affirmations and acceptance from others. You may say, I don't care about what others think of me, but that's only true to some degree. I am pretty sure you care what your mother thinks about you, or what your father thinks about you, or what your husband thinks about you, or what your wife, or your best friend, or your brother, or your sister thinks about you. So we all have a bubble of who we care about, their opinions of us. That bubble might be small, it might be big, but it is never zero. And that is true for all humans, including those who think themselves to be superior to all others, because we're just social animals. But if you are superior to others, then why would you care about what they think? Hence, it creates this void. It leaves them with this social and emotional aloofness, so to speak, and this leads to the collapse of their belief. Because if I am superior to them, I want them to accept it, regurgitate it to me, tell me that. But then if they tell me that, I don't care, because I am superior to them. I don't see them as somebody whose opinions matter. And this is true for all child prodigies. This is the reason why, if you look at most child prodigies, you'll realize they start their lives great, they are brilliant at something in their school, in their childhood. But as they grow old, they become more and more aloof, they have fewer friends, they have more failed relationships. And I'm not saying that if you are a child prodigy, or if your child, or if somebody you know is a child prodigy, this is what will happen. But what I'm saying is, this is what has happened to a lot of child prodigies. They grow up to be lonely, they grow up to have failed relationships. They often grow up to be somebody who's a child prodigy, somebody who's amazing at the age 14. You expect them to be really still doing very good at the age, I don't know, 34, 44, but very often they are not. In fact, many a times they struggle to keep a job, have a job. Many a times they struggle to fit into the society, and this is the reason why. Because ever since their childhood, they've been told that they are phenomenal, that they are better than everyone else, which means they will never take any creative criticism, any critique from anybody, because they've been trained to believe that they are better than everyone else. They will never acknowledge that they can be wrong, and they can make mistakes, because again, they've been made to believe that they're better than everybody else. And this is what leads to all those failed relationships, all those job jumpings, and messed up lives, and it is terrible. It is very heartbreaking to me that some of the child prodigies even end up on the streets, and it's terrible. It's just terrible. There's no other words for that. Moving on, this book is crazy. In the sense it drops you right in the head of a murderer, right? And it asks you to just deal with it. There is no there's no warming up to it. There is no breaking it to you. It just drops you in there. And as I said earlier, like, this book is both really hard to put down, but very tiring to read at the same time. In the first almost 2/3 of the book, Raskolnikov just keeps shooing people away who love him, his mother, his sister, his friend, even Sonia. On the other hand, all Sonia has is love. It doesn't earn her money or make her feel good or make her life better, but it makes her kind. And I feel that in this book, Dostoevsky is telling us that love is the only way to be kind and compassionate. When Raskolnikov confesses his crime to Sonia, she is crying. and feeling with every line he says. And when he's done speaking, she says, "Ah, how great is your suffering." Even, even in the epilogue of the book, when he has, when he is in a jail in Siberia and she has moved to a village nearby, she does it because she knows this is the only way he will be free from the inner guilt, inner punishment, so to speak. In fact, what really stood out to me is that when he confesses it to her, she is able to look through it all, through the murder, through whatever little he stole, through all of his own propaganda that he has bought into, that he confesses that it was a false notion that he bought into, and and fuck and see she fuck and see sees sees and sees his suffering, his pain, and has pity for him, which is crazy, when you think about it. Like, if somebody came to you and confessed the murder, and you're able to see through all of that and see the pain, the suffering that that person is going through because of the guilt of a murder. To be honest, I don't think I don't think I would be able to do that. I would just be like, oh man, this is insane. Just call the cops, man. Um, in fact, Raskolnikov himself finds it so intense. Like, he later on, Raskolnikov later on in the page says that he finds it traumatizing. Like, the traumatizing, that how intense it is that she is able to see through all of it and see his pain. And I think that part, or in fact Sonia's character, is a great lesson on how only love can truly save us. And that sounds like a line from the Bible or something. But truly, when you think about it, as I've mentioned earlier, that they are both in a pickle, but Sonia chooses to do what would hurt her instead of hurting others. And her love for her siblings, for her stepmom, is what pushes her to do that. And only when, Raskolnikov confesses it to her, and when he falls in love with her, actually, when he falls in love with her, he is able to confess it to her, and only that confession is able to, like, really truly free him from the guilt, right? Is really able to save him, so to speak. To me, there are good books, there are great books, and then there is Dostoevsky. Why this book, 200 odd years later, is still relevant, more today than ever before probably, is because it is a true timeless. In today's world, where what is right, what is moral, and what is wrong is all up in the air. And that is why it is so relevant to read this book, Crime and Punishment. As I said at the beginning, I hear so many people say that, why should I do the right thing? Also, I feel that no one can read Crime and Punishment without finding a little Raskolnikov within themselves. Thank you for listening. Please suggest me what should be other books on my list for 2026. I don't have a list as such. As I said, I want to read 20 books. Little Woman by Louisa May Alcott is one of them. There are 3 other books in this series: Little Men, Joe's Boys, Good Wives. I have Arundhati Roy's Mother Mary Comes to Me. I also have The Courage to be Disliked. Other than that, 2026 is wide open. I would love your recommendations. I definitely want to read more Dostoevsky. I also have my eyes on Franz Kafka. But please, your recommendations are more than welcome. I hope you liked it. Please let me know how can I do this better. And if you haven't done it already, please read Crime and Punishment. It's a very cheap book, cheap as in inexpensive, to find in both stores and online. Because this is outside, the copyright on this expired. I'm sure you can find a PDF for free online as well if that is your jam. And cheers and solidarity.